Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast. My name is Eric Thomas. I'm the host of the show. And today we're joined by Sean Callahan and Drew Clark from Central Cooling and Heating. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Great, Eric. How are you?
I'm good, Eric. How are you?
Awesome. Doing great. So, Sean, why don't you go ahead first and introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about what you do for the company.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Eric. My name is Sean Callahan. My title here is Director of Sales and Marketing. My responsibilities are global for sales and global for marketing, basically looking to take a family-held business that's been around since 1966 and take it through growth mode. We're on track this year to do just a little bit under $20 million in total sales. And together with Drew's help, we're looking to take a business that has an existing model that works really well and update some of the techniques and approaches that we have for both sales, marketing, and using technology to kind of keep an eye on all of it. It's been pretty successful to date. We got underway at about, I'd say, the last day of November together, and we're up year over year about $1.5 million in sales.
Nice. Cool. That's awesome. So, Drew, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Eric. Office manager here at Central Cooling and Heating in Woburn, Massachusetts. I help shore up and help run the operations inside of the company, as well as help Sean with some marketing, mostly social media marketing and that sort of stuff, and trying to build a bigger presence on social media specifically. But yeah, just trying to shore up an already existing model internally inside the office, customer service, that sort of stuff to make things more efficient, as well as just make sure that customers are getting the best customer service that we can possibly offer.
Nice. So you guys are in Massachusetts. So my next question, I hope is a simple answer. Are you guys Red Sox fans?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good deal. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially this year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're doing great this year. Yeah. I love the Red Sox. I got some family that lives up there in Massachusetts, in Tingsboro, and I've got some in Lowell as well. I'm not sure if y'all service that area or
Lowell.
not.
Yep, definitely Lowell. Tingsboro, I don't believe we do.
Yeah, I think Tingsboro is closer to like New Hampshire, in a different side of the state. So anyways, so Sean, getting back into some of that growth that you guys have been recently seeing year over year, what's been the main driver of that?
The main driver, in my opinion, has been understanding who we are and really being able to synthesize that and tell the world who we are. We're different than other companies. The way we attack it is completely different. The approach that we've taken is we're letting our customers tell people. We're really driving people to, the Google reviews, Google My Business page, and really let our work do the talking for us. There's multitude of approaches that were here when Drew and I started, and it's interesting to see the way that they were attacking it and having such great success. Drew and I are big fans of social media marketing and letting people understand us, for who we say we are. We do use some traditional marketing, on the internet, on the radio, and the like. We find that to be more brand awareness. One thing that Drew and I have been pushing for the past 7 months is being able to be accountable in metrics. How many leads do we get? What do we do with our leads? How many leads do we need to run our salespeople? And what streams and avenues bring us the best results? We've just recently implemented Salesforce here to track all that. And we've really taken a super successful company and begun to give it some data to get us out of the anecdotal and into the provable.
That's awesome. I'm not sure I've ever spoken with anyone on this podcast, at least, who uses Salesforce. So I'd like to just hear a little bit more about how you all implemented Salesforce into your operations.
Well, to be fair, I think a lot of companies do have other sorts of CRMs that are somewhat out of the box package type systems, which, I feel is a Band-Aid. The owners of the company and the general manager were extremely generous in budgeting for us the resources to go out and tackle something like this. With Drew's help, we have hours and hours and hours into forming a system that it mirrors and mimics the way we operate. We run a different type of sale. We sell on value. We're not in a race to the bottom. So for people that we can't help, we appreciate that. We appreciate that our prices, when it comes out for a total cost for the service and the install and, what you're getting from us, we know that we're going to be on the higher end, but at the same time, we tell people that out of the gate. I think bringing Salesforce in for us gives us the opportunity to have all of our customers visible throughout the process. Where are people in the process? Where are we losing people at the process? A lot of people talk about marketing and sales as, these ultimate wins and these ultimate highs. The easiest way to grow a successful business is to take the peaks and the valleys and shave them off, right? How can we get people more towards the middle, somewhat like a sine and a cosine? You can't always have the ups and the downs. Salesforce was a big decision for us. Like I said, we've been around since 1966. Drew and I are easily the quote unquote newest employees at the company. And it shows that there was a strength of conviction to evolve with the times. Things that we talk about with marketing, we talk about Google My Business and reviews, and how do we get people to come and contact us? Is it via text? Is it via email? How do people find us? All of those different streams we have pouring into Salesforce, pouring into our call center, and we can see where folks are in the pipeline as they come through. It's an interesting question how we came to be here. I think it was a really bold choice by the sales manager who was here before us, because most folks in our industry are going with a service titan or something out of the box, and it's just not really set up for sales. It's set up for service people or service techs to sell. And although that is a part of our business, it's not. Most of our business come from traditional salespeople, who in our case are actually project managers too. And we needed something to mirror us. We weren't going to back into some system haphazardly and make it happen.
Yeah. So what's been the general reaction from, some of the other stakeholders of the business since implementing Salesforce? Has it been pretty positive?
Well, it's funny, you mentioned stakeholders, and this is a podcast about HVAC and sales and marketing in this aspect. Drew and I have a huge responsibility to stakeholders above us, but we also have a massive responsibility to stakeholders below us who count on us to deliver. And I have to tell you, the largest sale we made this year as a company was to selling to the salespeople that, this is the way forward for us. Salespeople want to earn more income. They don't want to work 1,000 more hours, and they want to be treated with respect. And, that sale, and, again, it was critical to have Drew, who's very tech savvy, here to help roll this out. It was critical to have the salespeople want to undertake the change. The stakeholders who are above us, the general manager and the owners, they're really keen on not losing who we are as a brand as we evolve to be more technology or more technologically savvy.
Yeah. I've found that too, just with interactions with some of our own clients here and just from talking with other companies, that the hardest sale to make sometimes is to your sales team, your CSR team, some of those, the other people internally who are just, they want to do it the way that it's always been done, or they don't want to change, even though they can't see the end goal. So we have a question in the comments here. We'll go ahead and show this. So Zach Miller says, was it difficult to make the move to analyze more and make decisions off of those data points than just winging it like you mentioned before?
No, I don't think it was difficult. I actually think it's comforting in as much as our business is what it is, right? If Drew and I get hit by a bus tomorrow, our business will make it because we have a fantastic model, and that's the basis point. So having the model, having just having the support of the management team to actually get after it and figure out what we want to see, it wasn't difficult. Developing it, finding out how to get the data, finding out what's good data versus bad data. I mean, let's be fair. We work really hard at what we do, and ultimately we work in a B2C business, right? The customers are either happy or they aren't. The solution either works or it doesn't. and our team is either good at what they do or they don't. We're just trying to find ways to make it easier and more profitable. So winging it probably isn't fair to say about our company, prior to Drew and I coming here, because they do have techniques and approaches that are set in stone and they've been around forever. Cracking those, like getting a toehold and getting change to happen, I'd say that was difficult. But having data actually to report on and make decisions, I feel, once the comfort level was there that the data is correct, it's how, when we could show people how we used to track it versus how we now track it, and look, the numbers match, it's not difficult at all. It's just getting to the level of being able to extract the data that you need.
Yeah, and to piggyback a little bit on that as well, I think it, largely is about workflow, both internally and externally. Obviously, externally, it's transparent if a company's workflow is all over the place, because everything from the CSR to the sales guys, again, it's transparent if people don't have their stuff put together, so to speak. And so with the data and being able to make decisions off the data, it's also sometimes hard to analyze and measure the couple of minutes per day that these types of systems, Salesforce. We also are adopting DocuSign, which interacts directly with Salesforce, again, to make it easier both for our customers to sign contracts, both easier, it's more professional. We're not using Word documents or anything like that, but also largely internal is, the efficiency of it makes it so that, it shaves off time on each procedure for CSRs, for sales guys and all different stuff, but it also to be able to accurately follow the workflow all the way through and come across as a well put together business that, it allows our CSRs to maintain better customer service because the internal systems are easier to follow. The workflow, when it's easier to follow, is easier to focus on other things. So I think along with the data, especially internally, it's a huge, morale booster. But any smart person, when, again, to Sean's point, the company was very successful before Sean and I got here and, brought us in for new, fresh ideas and that sort of stuff. And any smart person would question new procedures that are going to be put into place, because when you have procedures that have proven to be successful, why would people come in and want to change those? But I think, as they do adopt them and see over time that it's not just about the data, but it feels better. It's easier to follow the workflow. It's easier, to maintain a high level of customer service that we as a company, Central Cooling and Heating, pride ourselves on. I think it just naturally over time is easy to maintain a positive attitude through those sorts of changes.
Yeah. So from a marketing standpoint, Drew, what's been the biggest push lately, and how's it gone?
Yeah, I think that the biggest push would be, where through data and analyzing, I think we're starting to see, especially in the 21st century, that SEO and pay-per-clicks are not only expensive, but now more than ever, social media is rampant and it's running like crazy. And switching from something that does cost a lot of money, like SEO and pay-per-clicks, to something that you can market for free on social media. I think pairing with SEO and pay-per-clicks, social media has been one of the biggest pushes, because 21st century, we need to keep up to date. We have a lot of leads that come in through Facebook Messenger. Sean's worked very hard with Google My Business, so like the main Google page for customers to be able to reach out as easily and efficient as possible. So I think other than social media being the biggest push, I think it would be the efficiency of how customers can reach us and how we can reach back out to customers, because I don't have the exact statistics, but the majority of the time, the company that responds first to a customer, especially a new customer, is the company that gains their business. So it's, again, going from external and internal. It's a healthy relationship between the two.
Yeah, I've heard that statistic actually on the show here. I think it was like the third episode we ever released. We recorded with Matt Miner from Hatch, which is a customer messaging tool. And he had shared that statistic during that episode. I'd have to go back and look back on it, but it's a significant amount. It's like 58 to 60% or something like that. The people that get back to him first. And that's interesting that you mentioned that Facebook has been so big for lead gen, because I feel like a lot of people they don't utilize Facebook and social media to the most extent that they can for getting customers. They just use it just to check a box. Yeah, to check a box and say, oh yeah, we posted on there today. So what are some of those, like some of the content or some of the strategy that you all use on Facebook that works pretty well for that?
But
go ahead, Sean.
I want to jump in on this. I think that, one thing that Drew and I saw, when we see Facebook advertised, we see a lot of people again, it's a bandwidth thing. Who has the bandwidth to do all this? But you see a lot of people just doing generic canned, happy 4th of July. And, they're going to hit every single holiday with that. And that's fine too, because you get the touches. But, Drew just had an amazing post on Facebook the other day. It was a new service technician of ours. She's a very talented young lady. She flew up through the training ranks. And, she's already ready to go in her own truck, and that was a post for us. That's the kind of post that we're driving and we get good responses on, because it's not canned, it's not generic. It shows the world that, wow, this company is definitely out in the forefront. They have people who are not faceless and nameless, and it really makes us accessible to the customer. And, a post like that gets incredible interaction, across the board too. Even if you were to put that on your Google My Business page, people are drawn to stories like that, they don't feel that are BS, right? That's real. We're proud of, the successes of our, team members and our employees, and it shows. I think that that's the kind of post that we're pushing towards. We're pushing away from the canned and more towards, something that's worth interacting on. Because if you think about Facebook, we get outside of our concentric circle. And, say, for instance, Eric, we post something about this podcast and you post something about it. Now I'm outside your podcast, and any of your relatives up in Tingsboro who might be close to where we are gets out into their circle. It really gets going like wildfire if you have the right post, the right message. And, it's like fishing. You got to use the right bait for what you want to come back to us. One thing that we thought, would be interesting talking about a seasonal business like ours is, how do you market in the wintertime when, your service technicians are completely, totally out straight? You're spending marketing dollars like crazy, and all you're getting is service leads when you desperately need sales leads. Part of Facebook and part of Google and part of other social media approaches are you're actually driving what type of business you want.
Yeah, I'd love to talk on that a little bit more, because we were, before we started, we were talking about the seasonality up in Massachusetts, how, it gets hot for a little bit, everyone kind of floods in, and then towards the end of summer, they just say, we'll fix it next year. So what's the seasonality look like for you all in Massachusetts, and what's really the strategy for marketing that?
Well, I think, for Central and for the way that we're looking at attacking it is trying to find ways to have a similar spend year over year, but increase results. So, last year we had a very big spend in a campaign that was more about brand awareness, which is fantastic, but it's really hard to quantify what it netted us business wise, right? Did
the
our
ROI.
page views and interaction go up? Yeah, absolutely. But what's the ROI and the spend? And I think for us, looking at it from a seasonality aspect, we need to have some sort of control over costs. And the easiest way to have a control over costs is to spend money where you get a return. So right now at this time of the year, offering rebates on air conditioning, it's foolish. There's no need for it. Spending extra money on advertising, for air conditioning is foolish. There's no need for it. So how do we tactfully, revamp what we found in the past, where it was just a constant spend month over month over month, and find ways to increase and decrease it early enough on the shoulder months to get a response. Right now we have a meeting in mid to late August with a traditional marketing company for a big spend that we want to kick off, just around Thanksgiving, because we want to get out ahead of heating season. We're going to pretty much half the spend that we made last year and try and take the other half and invest it into Google and try to do some Google verified. There's ways in which that we can spend the same amount of money but drive more leads. And getting back to the point about seasonality, seasonality is important, but it's also important about, what we can do, what we can offer. At this time of the year, we can't offer too many more spots for people to install air conditioning. We're booked out so far. So we're really in a position for capturing customers who have systems that still work, but want to wait till the off season, right? So now we're getting back into seasonally marketing, but marketing with messaging, right? Everything has to be nimble and able to pivot. For us, finding people in the heating season who need heat, okay, it's cold up here in Massachusetts. People are going to find us. So how do we find people who aren't completely, in dire need of a system, which we definitely want to find, but typically with our years in the industry and word of mouth, they'll find us. How do we find folks on the shoulder months to pull them in, to stretch out our heating season, to stretch out our air conditioning season?
Yeah, I think a huge part of that is
Yeah,
I think a huge part of that is also education. And then when you're talking about educating the public, you start to have the conversation of what's the cheapest way to go about it. So to go back to social media and, pay-per-clicks, SEO, or, even direct mail campaigns, if we're trying to educate people who aren't in dire need of air conditioning, it's July 21st right now. How do we get the message across and educate them that it's not the best time to be installing AC with us when we're booked out, in August, but the best time to do it is in the winter. Nobody wants to be without AC for 2 or 3 days during the summer, especially if it's a hot kick like we've had. We've had probably 3 or 4 heat waves this summer up here that are in the high 90s, and instead of being without air conditioning for those heat waves, the best time to do it is when you're not running it, which is the winter. And then it gets back to what's the cheapest way to do that. And one of the cheapest ways to do that would be through social media and through educating the public through social media and, trying to get the point across that, we want to help you. We want to have the capacity to help you. But the best time if your AC is not completely dead and you need a brand new system is to work with us during the winter to get that AC. So I think it's, large part is educating the public as well.
Yeah. And it's hard too, because there's equipment shortages right now, which I feel like almost everybody's experiencing. It seems like it's starting to finally come back around. But if they get with you in January, my guess is that you guys will have an abundance of equipment as far as air conditioning systems and stuff that you could install for them, rather than right now where you guys are booked out till August and you're ordering stuff weeks and weeks in advance. And so they can even get that at almost at a lower cost too, if they come back in the wintertime, I imagine, or at least less of a surge cost that some people charge.
Well, it's interesting because, it's twofold. So the benefit of an off-season discount is definitely something that exists within the central realm. I mean, we don't use surge pricing. It's not really an approach we want to take. It's not really the model that we have. We are us. Our install is us, and people who want to work with us do. So we don't use that. Another point, Eric, that people miss is that there just aren't enough young men and women in the trades to install at the level that the market has. So during the off season or the shoulder months, we offer an off season discount. You can pick the day. Right now you're not picking the day. I could be out serving 2 or 3 leads a day. You could be out serving 2 or 3 leads a day, and Drew could be out serving 2 or 3 leads a day. If someone can't make a decision today and 2 of my fellow salespeople convert, 66%, there's 4 more truck days gone. You're already a week out and you didn't even do anything. It's competitive, and it's not really by design, it's by demand.
Yeah. So how do you guys go about hiring and retaining quality technicians and install crews?
I'll let Drew take this one, because this is definitely right up his alley.
Yeah, so I'm in charge of recruiting here, and it's very challenging because, especially my generation, Eric, you're a young guy as well, even Sean's generation was told, from an early age that the right thing to do, the right path is to go to college. And now we're starting to feel that, and not just with labor shortage, but, when we go to a homeowner's house and we change a part and it takes 2 or 3 hours, and then we hand them the bill, and their eyes get wide, like, what do you mean it's $600-700? It shouldn't cost that much to replace it. Well, it's all based off of supply and demand. And if we had more young, women and men in the industry to service people, across the board, prices wouldn't be that high. And I think that's every trade industry, plumbing, electrical. I mean, not only is it hard to find contractors, but it also is expensive, and it's only going to increase unless we push young women and men into the trades. So the way to go about it is, Sophia, the new technician that Sean was talking about from our Facebook post, she came from an adult. She's actually, in her 30s. She came from some sort of adult program where I basically did mock interviews for people who were looking to get into the trades and who wanted more information. And, I sat down with her, spoke with her, told her what HVAC in general has to offer, told her what central cooling and heating has to offer. And through that gained her interest. But it's, networking is probably the biggest thing. I mean, you have the traditional websites that every company is using right now, Indeed, ZipRecruiter. We have relationships with recruiters, entire recruiting companies around the Boston and North Shore, Massachusetts area. But even they are having a hard time finding experienced technicians, experienced installers, because for the most part, every company right now knows that you have to train and retain your talent, because the pay scale is going up rapidly along with the shortage of workers, because companies are having to pay ridiculous amounts of money to people who are willing to work hard and willing to learn and willing to put in the work to get educated and to become good technicians and installers. So really, I would say our model is to train and retain. Since I've been here in October, I've hired probably at this point 9 to 11 different green is what we call them, technicians. We have a maintenance program. It's about an 8-week program that you basically come in with either little or no experience, and we teach you about conventional systems, ductless systems, both oil and gas systems. We're actually in the process of building out a whole training area that's about I think it's 20,000 square feet, where it's going to have live units that can be worked on. But basically at the end of the 8 weeks, the goal is to, get a technician or a new technician out into their own truck and start doing maintenances on systems that they've been taught to do throughout those 8 weeks. We have, currently right now, I think we have 5,000 or 6,000 service contract customers that, in that service contract is included maintenance per year. So at the end of 8 weeks, we get them in their own truck, start having them perform maintenances. Through maintenance performance, naturally you find parts and systems that need to be replaced or worked on. So it's just little by little, you gradually build them up and train them, and then show them through culture and appreciation that, we want you here, you are important. It's not just because you're hard to find, but it's also, through our culture, we want to find and build people who enjoy working hard. HVAC industry it's no secret, it's tough. You're in tight spaces, hot spaces, heights and stuff like that. And the people who want to put in the work and effort are going to get paid well. And we're trying to stay on top of that, industry averages and industry standards. We're trying to be on the top scale of that, kind of just like our, our sales and install prices are, because we're selling ourselves both internally and externally. Going back to that, it's, we have a certain way of doing things and a certain standard that we hold ourselves to. And that's, some would say that's priceless, but, there's a cost to it both internally and externally.
Yeah. And I imagine, everything ebbs and flows, it'll go up and come down, go up and come down. The economy does it. The stock market does it. A lot of things do that. I imagine, and I would love to be right on this, because I'll come back in the future if this is correct and grab this clip and say I said so. I imagine that there's going to be an influx here in the next 5 to 10 years where people are going to just say, like, all right, college is not worth it. I'm going to go learn a trade, or I'm going to go start my own business, or I'm going to go do everything else but go to college. And then there's going to be a huge supply of people looking for like trade jobs and stuff of that sort, where right now you're like you said, you either have to hire them when they're green around the gills and train them, or you have to go find someone from another company, offer them a sweeter deal or a hiring bonus or something like that, just to get someone to come install systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And in no way, shape, or form was the pandemic a good thing to happen to any industry or anybody in general. But I think one thing that the pandemic, highlighted and brought to light was, again, going back to Sophia, mid-30s, she was in the restaurant industry for 15 plus years. And right after high school, she went into it. She was actually a manager of a catering business. And she made the transition willingly. And, she saw the opportunity in the trades, and she made the switch over to the trades industry. And actually 4 or 5 other people that we hired throughout the pandemic, there's something, if you're in an essential business and you don't have to worry about losing your job, there's something really to say about that. And then on top of that, the supply and demand driving the wages and salaries through the roof right now. Yeah, it's hopefully in the next 5-10 years, we see more and more young women and men get into the trades, because there is a lot to gain from it. It's skills that nobody can ever take from you. And, in a world, especially right now, where everything can be found online, and most everything can be found online for free, not that college isn't worth it or anything like that. I'm grateful I went. But yeah, I think the pandemic highlighted now more than ever that you can make a fantastic living and have a great life and gain good skills through the trades and through other paths other than just college.
Yeah. So when it comes to, and I was thinking about this when you're talking about your maintenance customers and you're sending them out on maintenance calls. When it comes to the service element of the business, do you all use Salesforce to oversee all of that as well?
So Salesforce right now has been built out. We're going to go customer facing all the way back to service. So we're starting with sales and marketing. We're going to envelop the install crew next. And then, once that's up and running, proof of concept, we'll then go over to service. It's not to scare anyone. It's been a massive undertaking. I had some experience with Salesforce before in another company that I worked at. It is a top of the line product for what you need to do. It's just you really have to invest in it to get out of it what you want. I think that the service department will be looking for some sort of CRM in the near future. We have a module specifically reserved within Salesforce for service or service businesses. So it's there, it's ready to go. It just has to be built out. We also started developing Salesforce in the off season, and now we're right here in peak season, and we're still somewhat tuning it up on the fly. I think we're going to be there, Eric. I think it's critical. Drew mentioned something earlier that I think that when we talk about marketing and sales that we miss, there's so many opportunities to show a customer that you care about them. And, a simple example when thinking about it, what do we do with our leads? We have leads who are people, they're homeowners, they need us. So we look at them like that. And oftentimes we have project managers who are salespeople who are out visiting a multitude of people, and things fall between the cracks. Salesforce has given us the opportunity to provide a backstop, which I think for the service department will be even more fortified, where if a customer calls in and said, hey, Drew was out to my house, we looked at my system, he said he was going to get me a proposal, I haven't seen it. Right now we actually have the visibility to say, oh, Mr. Thomas, I'm glad that you called in. Drew actually emailed you your proposal last week and he sent it to this address. I'm looking at it right now. That's visibility that we didn't have 8 months ago. That phone call 8 months ago, like, oh, Mr. Thomas, we let you down. We're so sorry. This, that, and the other thing, where we don't even know if that's true because it's impossible to tell. We have the ability of taking our systems, our process that we have, and putting it out into the cloud, of knowing that, and rolling that out to service will only help them to. It shaves so much time, and it's made such a better customer experience, not only for my customers who are all the employees that I'm responsible for, but all of the customers that I'm responsible for outside of Central.
Yeah. It also helps too to have that. It makes your entire operation more nimble and more agile, because you're not having to deal with, like you said, you're not having to deal with printing off service contracts or contracts for sale or anything. You can put it in the cloud. It's all stored there. You don't have to fiddle around with printers and faxing and all this other stuff and getting people to sign it. Like with DocuSign, you can send a document out to them, and if they don't sign it, you can always you can hit the send notification or whatever, and it
hits itself.
Exactly.
Itself. Yeah, we got to set it up right now. So every 2 days after the project manager and salesman sends it, every 2 days that a customer doesn't open it or sign it, it pings them. It pings the customer back and says, hey, we're still here. We still want to help. let us know what we have to do.
Yeah.
Eric, we built it out that after, if Drew sent you an agreement and you authorized it and Drew signs it to execute the agreement, it goes right into Salesforce and it just lets the next person know that, hey, great news, we have an authorized, a fully executed agreement ready to go,
It's
move
awesome.
it down the line. It's like a relay race. Everyone just passes the baton.
Yeah, it's again, though, it's the workflow, that automatic ping. An automated system allows us to be more efficient on the internal system. And that's huge because the transparency between us and customers, if we're right on top of things and we're showing them step after step that we not only care about their business, but we're doing everything we can to gain their trust and earn their respect, that's huge. And again, going back to brand awareness, that's how you build true brand awareness and get, the referral business, which is still probably, one of the largest, especially the largest free marketing tool. But that's, brand awareness and referrals in an industry like HVAC is everything.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, if you give them a good experience, we've been talking about customer experience on here a lot more lately, even. And this has been awesome to talk about. Having that good customer experience is going to increase your chances of getting that word of mouth referral by at least, 50%, because I'm certain that, Central could go and install a furnace or AC, and it could do just as good of a job as the next company who installs the furnace or the AC. That, I'm sure that both, companies could do a good job installing it. But what it comes down to after that is, how did the customer feel during that interaction? How, what was the taste that you left in their mouth? Were they happy with the service? Was everything easy? Were you having to hunt them down and get signatures? Was it, annoying for them? So having all those systems in place to just make it boom, 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 whenever, the agreements are going out and going into Salesforce and getting it scheduled, that'll make it so much easier for the customer to tell their friends, yes, Central is a great company. They will take care of you. You don't have to wait around forever. It's pretty smart. And, I like I said, we haven't heard from a lot of people that are using Salesforce. So major kudos to you all, because I know Salesforce is pretty powerful if used correctly.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I have to tell you, we had the ability this year to really take a big leap forward by simply putting in a ton of elbow grease and effort. If you can somewhat plan where you want to be in the future, just like you would do in a regular business plan, and then, we partnered with Salesforce. It was not inexpensive. And at the same time, this isn't a commercial for them, because I think what we partnered with them to do was to take our model and just show it off to the world. And we had a great result. I think if your model, if you're another business and you're thinking about implementing CRM or bringing in something like Salesforce, it really magnifies and reflects your model. If your model isn't set, if your goals and approaches and techniques aren't set, keep in mind, you will be projecting that out to the world. One thing that Drew and I work on is we always try to think, hey, how does this look to someone who doesn't know a thing about HVAC, who's in a position of need, and they're trying to make a choice between, 2, 3, with the online bid system, 5 companies, how do we stand out without, wringing someone's arm at the table? How do we just stand out by just the proof is in the pudding? Look what our customers say about us. You a referral, ask them about it. Most companies like ours fail within 2 years, and we've been around since 1966. So, I think that Drew and I are stewards of the model, and we're just trying to, really grow this business with the gift of having the talented people here and using our techniques and approaches and really hit it harder.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely package up that, at least, the modules or whatever that you all have created within that system, and repackage that into, another company. Even you could probably make a lot of money off that, or Salesforce could at least.
I'm sure they're looking right now, Eric.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, because there are, I know we mentioned some of the other CRMs out there, there's Service Titan and House Call Pro, and those are great for for contractors that are just wanting to get what they need, or, get some type of fixed model that
The
they
basics.
the basics of what they really need to service their customers. But with Salesforce, like literally the sky is the limit. You can develop anything in there that you can possibly think of. Whereas with some of these other ones, it requires like complex third-party integrations that are sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And so that, I think that's really cool. Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's been awesome. I know I don't want to take up too much more of y'all's time. So before we go, I want to ask one more question to each of you, and then we will wrap up. So a lot of our listeners out there are smaller contractors, usually 1 to 3 man shops, which is why it's awesome to have, big successful companies like yours on here. So Sean, if you were talking to a contractor out there just getting started off, what's some advice that you would give him or her to grow their business?
First and foremost, I would tell them that, no matter what they do, to believe in themselves and find people who believe in them to move forward. Having an employee who is a partner is far more important than an employee who is a liability. I think if you have people like that, then moving forward is next, what's your plan? Where do you want to be? And breaking it out into the specific metrics that you need. Now, you don't need to get too deep into it, but it's as simple as this. For Drew and I all day long, how many leads do we need that turn into how many appointments that close at so many, percentages of closing rates, which leads close higher than other leads, and then you boil it down and you figure out how many of each you need, and then you work the plan, dependable and repeatable. There's a lot of gimmicks out there. There's a lot of products out there that offer ways in which, you can somewhat cheat. There's no way to cheat. If you know your numbers, you can do anything you want. And you really can't do it by yourself because you have to really have a force multiplier, right? Like, could Drew do what he does without the people who help him? Could I do what I need to do without Drew's help? Absolutely not. You need to have, men and women you trust. And, looking from us up to management, we try to attack it where, they give us our marching orders and, their support, and they let us get after it. And I have to say, if I was starting, a company with 1 to 3 to 5 employees, I want to hire people who I can partner with and say, hey, listen, here's the ball, run with it. You need to find a way to get your women and men to give you what you need. And it can't be a scam. If it's unattainable, no one's going to stretch for it. If it's attainable and you can do it dependably and repeatably and you reward your people, it just happens on its own. And I know that sounds pie in the sky, but the hard part is knowing what you want to do, finding the people to do it, and then giving them the ball and letting them run with it and being able to trust them. That's the difference between being a 1 to 5 man shop, a 5 to 10 man shop, and then growing into, a company like ours. We're not the largest, but even, we're looking to grow, and we're doing the same thing over and over, finding great new talent, giving them enough room to get out there and do it, and at the same time supporting them. Like our salespeople can only close so much. Humans make mistakes. You got to be there for when people make mistakes and buff them out. Everything's buffing them out. You just got to find a way to make them better.
Yeah. Awesome. Drew, and usually I just ask one final question. So this is cool that I get to ask 2 of y'all. I'm going to ask a separate question for you, just as like a bonus. When it comes to social media for contractors, what do you think is something that they can do to generate more leads off of Facebook? Some content ideas that you think that would work really well for someone that doesn't, can't afford to hire someone internally or externally and is doing it themselves.
Yeah. So social media doesn't have to be something that takes up a lot of your time. So through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, you can actually create a marketing schedule where if somebody wanted to sit down one afternoon and come up with some good content and, take 4 or 5 hours, come up with, your next month's marketing schedule. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube will post those on time when they're, directed to be posted, and keeping the content fresh about it. I think largely it's also about integrity and what your base business model is as well. Like, going back to the Sophia post, that wasn't a marketing driven post. That's, we truly, I posted it again, but I posted it truly because, we appreciate her attitude. We appreciate her motivation. That was an employee oriented post. And through that, you organically gain the following, you organically gain the quote unquote contact. And I think that's what it's about. I think that, it's the same thing. If a talent marketer calls and you answer, you can pick up right away whether or not they're reading off a script. If you look at a company's social media or their marketing in general, you can tell, you can sort through the fluff of it. You can tell if somebody just is going about their business. They're not putting a lot of time and effort into it. They don't have a real model surrounded, a real model based around integrity or what their model is. I think that it's just basically figuring out what you're trying to achieve, but also it's integrity, and it's showing your employees that you appreciate them, your customers, you appreciate them, the community, that you appreciate the ability to operate within it, and that you're there for them. And the rest will organically come. But through that model, it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be time consuming. It's just figuring out the right way to, it's figuring out your own way, a unique way to go about it that will make, come with the organic results.
Yeah. And you got to keep trying and, trial and error until you find what kind of content sticks. And that's one thing that, I see a lot of people struggle with is just posting. Like, it's like they're afraid to, when I first started this podcast, we've got 2 people watching it live right now. When I first started this podcast, I was like, I don't want to put my face in front of the world and be talking. I hate the sound of my voice, but now I'm like, I don't even care anymore because people listen to this. Like, we have over 1,000 listeners a month now on the podcast. Like, people are listening to what we have to hear. If I had just kept saying, oh, I don't want to do that because no one wants to hear what I have to say, no one would have ever heard what any of us have to say. We've had 51 episodes now, and no one would have ever gotten any of this information now, if I just said, I don't want to do that. So, I think the hardest step as well is just posting, figuring out something to post and just doing it and seeing if it works or not. So guys, this has been an awesome episode. I really appreciate you all taking some time out of your day to join me. So for all listeners out there who want to learn more about central cooling and heating, what is a way that they can get in touch with you all?
I think the best way would be to go to our website, www.centralcooling.com. And if you can wait about a week and a half, you'll see our brand new website that Drew and I have been working on in the background. So about 2 weeks, we go live with our new site. It's
awesome. Yeah, that'll be great. We'll have to check it out whenever it goes live. Awesome. Well, I hope you all have a great afternoon and a great rest of your day. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.
Absolutely. All right.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, be well.
Take care.